Wonderful. And then I will pass this over to Leticia Fernandez-Ivans.
Hello, Metro and friend community. I'm Leticia Fernandez-Ivans speaking with you from Tongva Land, also known as Eagle Rock, Los Angeles. I'm a project manager with Metro's Art and Design, a co-host of this conversation with Community Relations today. And I have the honor of introducing the Venerable Julia Bogany, Tongva Elder, culture bearer, educator, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. I have come to know Julia through her cultural consultation on Metro public art projects, having the privilege of sitting with her for hours, hearing a more textured history and reality of Los Angeles's first people, a Tongva history that I did not learn as a student of LAUSD. Metro's cultural equity framework, or equity framework, I should say, has 4 pillars. One pillar is to listen and learn. And today we share the virtual presence of Julia, prepared to listen and learn, as we continue to build meaningful community engagement with the Tongva and LA's Indigenous communities. Like all the previous speakers in this series, she's someone who guides us to know our neighbors, better understand layered and intersecting histories, and sit with the truth. Please welcome Julia Bogany.
Good afternoon. So I'm here today. I'm going to read the land acknowledgement to start. The Tongva land acknowledgement. We, the Indian people, the traditional caretakers of this landscape, are the direct descendants of the first people who formed our lands, our worlds during creation time. We have always been here. Our ancestors prepared and became the landscapes and worlds for the coming of humans, with order, knowledge, and gifts embedded in the landscape. Our ancestors imbued a responsibility and obligation to our original instructions, guided by protocol and etiquette, to be part of, take care of, and ensure the welfare of the extended family and community, defined in its most inclusive expression, the nature, and to pass those teachings and responsibilities onto our children, grandchildren, and many generations to come, and to all those that now live here. Thank you. Okay.
So to kick us off, I thought I would ask you a question that you have asked over the years. I've read and heard you say, I quote, "I always say Tongva women never left their ancestral homeland. They just became invisible. How do we make ourselves not invisible is the question I ask every day." So starting with that, and that was a quote from the past, so things may have changed. But can you tell us a little bit about the Tongva and your life's work toward growing the visibility of your community, and share a little bit about what forms that takes?
So it's been 6 years now. I hadn't noticed that invisibility, only that I was constantly teaching and constantly answering the same questions. So my great-granddaughter asked me, what does it feel like to be a Tongva woman? And I said, I feel invisible. And she said, that's how I feel. And she was 11. Now she's 15. And I said, no, you cannot be invisible. So I opened the website to be visible and decided that it was time to show more visibility of who we are as Tongva, right? So teaching from one class to another wasn't doing it. I had to get beyond that. So I started working with artists, with different colleges, every place that would take me in, I went, right? And so I'm still going today, but it's a way that now I believe I am totally visible, and that people in Los Angeles know the Tongva are here. Right. And that we never did leave. I think that's the power that I told the women, you know, we've never left our land. We just became those invisible people. So I think we're finally back out. I didn't want my great-granddaughter to be invisible. And so that was the mission I set out to do.
Beautiful. One way of gaining that visibility has been through public art, as you propose to share today. And we have a few slides, and Michael, maybe you can start with the first. If you wouldn't mind just sharing a few of these examples with us and talk about how you provided consultation with the artists on their design development.
Well, when I met with the artist Andrew here, we met at the Arcadia Museum, and they said they were looking for a Tongva. So my friend at the museum called me and said, "You want to come meet with this artist?" And I said, "Okay." So I went down there, and he showed me the design. He showed me this was a basket from the Autry Museum. The only one they could find it was Tongva. You know, sometimes our baskets just say mission baskets and they don't actually identify. So they had one. And so he chose to use this. We took pictures together because for me, it's about relationships with people that empowers us to do the work that we do out in the community. So we took pictures with a little tiny acorn and talked about what these baskets would represent. And I said, you know, it's kind of like, that's California, the baskets. It'll represent all of the tribes at one time. But the power will be that it's a Tongva basket from Los Angeles. So, so I really enjoyed that time, and I haven't seen Andrew again, but I'm sure someday I will, as much as I've done with other artists. You know, yes, it's like we become. I belong to this family of artists, even though I say I don't do artwork, right? I just trace and rubber stamp very good. So,
Michael, would you move to the next slide?
so these are the drawings that were being made before we saw the baskets. At one point, if we remember, these baskets are on 210 freeway in Arcadia. And if we remember when they first went up, there was these beams of light that came right to the center. We wanted to put acorns in a basket. We thought about lighting them up, but the beams I think might have been bothering the airplane, so they took them down. So the beams are no longer there, but it's still a gorgeous piece of art. And people, I know I work at Claremont Colleges, and there every first semester, everybody says, "Have you seen the baskets on a 210? That's Julia worked on that." And that's the biggest artwork that people talk about all the time. Those baskets on a 210 freeway, because we're always traveling back and forth on the freeway. So I think that's great.
Next slide.
So here we have some beautiful baskets, and then there's a cradle board. So I do a collection of cradle boards, but I thought it was how he kind of the artist kind of took his designs and kind of really research. I'm intrigued by the fact that artists do so much research, that they don't just come paint a wall or do a statue without a lot of research. So for me, it's been helpful because then I get to dig in and research with them, and then I get to tell them the stories of how these things, how this art becomes, and it represents the Tongva very well in all the art that's out there in Los Angeles. And so far, so we encompass entire LA basin, so that's a long place to cover. And I also noticed that the metro now is coming to San Bernardino, which is still part of the Tongva territory. And this is I think people have like all these different pictures of these gorgeous baskets there. My students, every semester, they'll go take pictures of them, and they share them, and they show them on campus and share the beauty of those baskets. Professors talk about them. When I speak for a professor, they say, "Have you seen these baskets?" And you know, I know my chief thought, "Well, you know, they're gray." I said, "Yeah, but it's the fact that it's a basket." You know, because how did we come up with the artists come up with the idea of making a basket to hold the metro? It's great. This is our piece in Little Tokyo that another artist friend of mine, Audrey, did, and she's like super fantastic. I met with her and Letitia. We met in Little Tokyo. We had some ice cream, I think. we had some ice cream and we talked, and then they came to I had a day before, we had day before Columbus at the Springs, and we met there, and this is a tree from the Springs. This is a dancers on my tribe dancing at the Springs for day before Columbus. Now it's called, now we don't call it day before Columbus, now we call it gathering with my ancestors at the Springs. And so it's for this one, I think we brought the Paiute people that came to visit us and gifted them that day. And so it's a place to welcome people, and the art has really been fabulous. It's been out there and really acknowledging who the tribe is, you know. So you can't mistake us, except for I came out on the goal line. Someone put my picture in there, and everybody said, but it was in Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and my chief said, "How do they know that's you?" Somebody knew. They sent me the picture. You know, so, and people will tell me, "I saw the other piece of artwork that Outreach did with you." So I think it's really great that people are getting to know all the artists in Los Angeles, also, not just me.
It was a real honor to attend the ceremony at the Kuruvungna Springs. I grew up just south of West LA, and I didn't know about the Springs, and it's just right there at University High School. Maybe not everybody in the room knows about the Springs. Could you tell us just a little bit about it?
Kuruvungna Springs has natural spring water coming from beneath the earth. And now we have 2 large springs. We also planted this summer 20 trees, all fruit trees. So, and avocados, are trying to make it more an environmental friendly to help the community and people who come and volunteer there. It's the only place that's been and that still exists that the Tongva take care of, right? So it's not actually ours. We're still taking care of the land.
How often is it open to the public, Julia?
Right now it's not open too much, but I've been having a lot of workers there. So, but usually it's open on Wednesdays by appointment for classes. And then I do classes on Saturdays. When people want to, you know, if we sign up for classes, we're open second Saturday for museum hours for people to come see, which is a nature center. But things are moving along, and you can usually find somebody there on a Saturday.
It is gorgeous and so special, and I highly recommend for those who haven't been there to even just take a peek through the fence. It is a just absolutely transformative experience to be there. And I will say that I happen to manage this project that Audrey Chan has been working on for years. It is going to be at the future Little Tokyo Arts District station. And she essentially engaged in 3 years of community conversation, including with Julia. And this panel will be approximately 12 by 15 feet at the platform of that station, along with 13 other large-scale panels representing communities around downtown, from the Arts District to Skid Row to the Tongva, and of course, Little Tokyo. So I think we can go to the next slide with the detail.
Yes, she did such a great job, right? So these are my 2 great-granddaughters with me. They're the ones that kind of hang out with me and have learned all the culture since they were babies. Marissa, who is now 15, started gathering at age 2 in the Santa Ana River, her Tule, and both girls, Alana is now 11, and they both know how to make baskets, and they know the culture pretty well. Marissa's learning the language, and that's really important to the tribe. And so she needs to carry the language on to the next 7 generations. And So this is a new art exhibit that just went up at Dominguez, at Cal State Dominguez. And this is done by Iris. We become great friends. That's what happens when you hang out with artists, you become friends, right? A lot of the artists that I work with like send me jobs that they do everywhere else. I didn't know about this till she was pretty close to getting the she was doing a consultation on it. She actually put this out in Hollywood first on a quilt that she weaved. And this is my grandma. So this oak tree on the one side, on the left side, is you can see the leaves representing my grandmother Julia, who I'm named after. And I used to say all the time, I do everything in honor of my grandma. And she died when I was 2, but I just remember her love. And so it just was great to do that, to bring the tribe back to being visible. And then on the other side, I'm sitting under the oak, and the butterfly on my dress represents my my great granddaughter Marissa. Her name is Dancing Butterfly, and I have a pink dress on, and I asked Iris, "Do I look good in pink?" Because she put the wild rose. The wild rose is the rose of our first woman chief. Her father called her Wild Rose. So there's a wild rose in the Tongva community that's really important to us. So she made it out of the wild roses. And I said, I don't know, I never worn pink. And I'm holding a little tiny pine needle basket that I made with, and it's first time I made a small one. It was really cute because Iris said, I was teaching her how to do it. And she says, yeah, I said, oh, I never made one this one. She said, can I have it? And I said, yes. And I thought, oh, that's my tiny basket. But it was really neat. And she made a beautiful big one. She is doing a lot of good things with what she's learned. And I also have taught in her class for the arts with students. And they always say, well, why do you say you're not an artist? You do all this art stuff. I said, oh, because I like to trace and color. I don't really consider it's just a gift. I say I don't consider it art to me. So this I did with artist Deborah Sacco. Deborah met with me in Eagle Rock, and we went out for coffee, and then I took Marissa with me to do an interview with her out in I don't remember the name of the city, but anyway, we went to this like a nursery, and we went and we talked together, and we cried together because we were thinking about grandmas and all that fun stuff. So there's really a family relationship with the artists I work with. It's just like we just we call each other and we check in on each other, see how we're doing. And this is Marissa's handwriting. So Deborah does her artwork is outside the walls because she says we're always in lines. So Marissa's introducing herself in Tongva above the LA River. So you have to have a fourth wall dimension in your little apps in your phone to see it. But this is what it looks like on paper. But it's just really great to have for Marissa to have that job. And I think when we went to the museum we were at, right by the nature center, Marissa and I were walking past this 8-foot table, and Deborah was on one side with me, and Marissa was on the opposite side. And we're looking at all these ollas and pots that were made at the by the LA River. And I told Marissa, I said, stop. And I said, do you feel something? And she said, yeah, I feel like butterflies in my stomach. I said, I just wanted to know if you had that feeling, because we had just seen the tiles from the roof from the Madre Sanka that were out in front. And then we're seeing the clay that my ancestors worked with, that they work with now at the Metabolic place. And we have a standing invitation to go and let Marissa make a pot. I'm not going to make a pot. Probably a pie dish. No, but anyways, that she's also gotten close to the artist, right? Because I kind of just drag her along with me. And now people call and check with her, and she calls the artist and checks with them. So that's great. It's just like having a big family that has actually made us visible.
Julia, just going back to that last slide, if you don't mind, Michael, can you share with us what it says?
Can I?
Yes.
Okay. In Tongva, Meihan Nichwadne Yakin Akudik. She says, hello, I come from San Bernardino. We didn't introduce ourselves by names first. We said the village we came from. She's from San Gabriel Valley, and she's Tongva, and she's with her grandma. And I'm her great-granddaughter, and I'm here and I'm from San Bernardino. So San Bernardino is Huachangaro, and that's where she's from the village of San Bernardino. That's where she was born. So
I do have a couple of questions, and then we'll open it up, if that's okay, Christina and Michael, to others, and then I can add more questions if need be, but I'm sure folks have some things they want to ask Julia as well. One question I have is, what should people and institutions know about the Tongva community, specifically as it relates to values and community engagement efforts by public institutions like Metro?
I think people should know, number one, that we're here, that we exist, even though the federal government does not acknowledge us, that not only does LA County acknowledge that we're here, we are a state recognized tribe, but what does that really mean if you don't know the people? If we don't know each other as neighbors, then we really don't know the Tongva here, right? We have to be in a community in order to make those relationships and understand where we're coming from and what other values.
Thank you. And then another question I have is, what do you wish to pass on to future generations of Tongva as an educator and a grandmother, culture bearer? You note of some of that here, language you talked about with Marissa.
I think it's, the difference is, like at 13, my mother gave me my BIA papers, which is the Bureau of Indian Affairs, my papers. It didn't make me go out there and say I'm Indian, right? But Marissa stands for who she is. She's not afraid, right? We're not living in that fear. My grandmother was. So like, I'm the only one that's registered. Everybody isn't registered with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but it's that fear is gone. So then it's time to pick up the mantle and keep going and allowing your people to live and to show more and more who they are and be proud of who they are. It's not good enough to just know that you're Tongva. You have to really know who you are and where your people been and how they got and how we got here, right, to this place today, because that's how we became invisible, because we were just there, but we were not just surviving. But today we are out and about with everyone else and being able to say I'm Tongva.
And regarding bringing that visibility and continuing to express that visibility, why do you think public art is a good platform for that?
I think that, yes, knowing that these are Tongva people have that question, like, who are they, right? We never knew you were here. We didn't know anything about you. They didn't study us in history, right? Our history in our schools start with the gold rush. They never start with the very first people that were here. Even tribes that came in during the relocation in the 50s didn't know that we were here. They kind of came to the promised land of Los Angeles, and yet they didn't know there was already Native people on here in LA. it's great that everybody's now recognizing that and understanding that that's who we are. So we're getting more. So my cousin Cindy Avitrius wrote a book, and so we're writing more and more books, right? Talking about our people, showing them, because you can't go to a library and find a whole lot on us. But I'm sure in a few years you'll be finding a lot, because we have a lot more young people that are graduating from college and writing and writing those stories that we have, that we share, that our people just took care of, but didn't share them, but we're sharing the knowledge so that it doesn't die again.
Julia, could you share your relative's book, the title of the book, in the chat? Maybe it doesn't have to be now, but we can always follow up on that.
Okay.
That's great. Well, is now a good time to open it up to broader questions?
Yeah, I will open the chat so that everybody can see questions coming in.
I think before we open the chat, we just wanted to relay ways to stay in touch with Julia after today's conversation. And here's the contact information as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's Julia's website with a really fantastic map of all the cultural and historical sites, right, Julia?
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, in the chat, we do have some questions that came in. One was similar to what Letitia just referred to. Can you recommend any books or resources to learn more about the Tongva people? Also, are there museums or outlets where we can purchase Tongva art? And that's from Nicole.
Okay, so I have one book called To Be Visible is my website, but I have the book Tongva Women Inspiring the Future, and it's about 5 women that inspired me. So we have the Water Woman, that's on Avenue 41, I believe, in the Gold Line. That wasn't a piece of art that I worked on. There's also Victoria Reed, and there's the water woman that delivered water door to door downtown Los Angeles when the water mill was there in early 1800s. And then there's Juana Maria from Island of Blue Dolphin. And then I have, right now, mostly I'm making coloring books with their name. So there's one in there right now with the animals and their names in Tongva. And maybe next week, my students will be finished putting together the plants and their names in Tongva, and also forces of water.
Great. We have another question from Mia, another community conversation speaker in the past. How many Tongva are there today, and where do most live? Also, what do you feel is important that we can learn from the Tongva people in your history?
So today we have about 3,000, I think, within Los Angeles County. But I just met a young man this weekend from Philadelphia that's moving out here to become a doctor. So that's really exciting, and to know and to learn his culture. And so, what was the rest of the question? What could you do?
What do you feel is most important we can learn from the Tongva people in your history?
I think it's values, and how until we acknowledge that the land is living, we cannot we won't be on the same page, right? We survive because of the land. So I always say that the land was not stolen, the responsibility of taking care of it was taken. And so then, therefore, in the land acknowledgement, I say we need to teach those people that are here today, how do we do that so that we can survive ourselves? Otherwise, we'll destroy ourselves if we don't learn to take care of the land.
Thank you. We have another question from Christine. She thanks you for such a great informative talk and has learned a lot to teach Christine's students at the history department at Cal State Fullerton. Christine asks, can you please tell the story again about the butterfly on the painting at Dominguez Hills and the connection to your granddaughter?
So, so we didn't give our children names at the beginning, right? Like the day you're born and you get a birth certificate with your name on it. So, today we do that, but at a certain age, we decide to do a naming ceremony. And then I prayed, so I was going to name her. So I prayed for her for the whole year till the Creator gave me a name for her. And so her name is Dancing Butterfly. And so the butterfly, so I didn't give her, I know Iris had that question about which butterfly. I said, I didn't give her a certain butterfly, is named her. So she picked the California butterfly, right? So and so when she was in kindergarten, I went to do a Halloween thing, right? And she was dressed as a witch. And then I had her come out in her regalia. And I said, it's up to her to decide to give you her name. But you saw a little witch, now you see her in her regalia. And so she said, my name's Dancing Butterfly. And so now it's followed her forever. She's in high school and everybody's calling her Dancing Butterfly. But it's okay, she loves the name.
Beautiful. We have another question from Aurelie asking if you have any recommended resources for learning the Tongva language.
We have a language class with Pamela Monroe from UCLA. There's Tongva words on Facebook every day. There's a Tongva word. So you can go on Facebook for Tongva language and you can learn words that way. Or you can just buy our coloring books, right? Until we start teaching.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a great way to learn language always. I think there was one earlier asking from Lily, if the Tongva speaks Spanish.
Some of us. I went at age 10 to Baja for 3 years, and I learned Spanish because my father remarried somebody that was from Mexico City. So I had to learn Spanish. Which I teach on Thursdays. I teach in Spanish mental health for convalescent homes.
Beautiful. We received another question from Jennifer. Will the Tongva bless the connection of the LA River bike path from Riverside Drive to the LA State Historic Park? So that's a Metro project. If anybody doesn't know, it's a multimodal path that we're planning that will stretch from Riverside Drive down to Vernon and Maywood to Atlantic Boulevard to fill in a gap. So it's still very early stages of development. So yeah, I can imagine we will definitely be inviting Julia and others from the community to bless it at that time, but it's still a very early stage right now.
Right.
And then another question from Claire, why doesn't the federal government recognize the Tongva people? Are there efforts to get recognition? Are there ways people can support?
It's a long process, so that's my chief works on that. I kind of believe that with the visibility we have, that we can just go on a ballot 1 year and the people will vote. It's a quicker way to do it. So, the more people that know we exist, the government way is a longer way to do it.
Thank you. Mia has another question. What is your most precious holiday or day of celebration? And so do you prepare special food for that celebration? For example, Japanese have, Mia, Oshogatsu, our New Year celebration with special foods. So
winter equinox is coming up on the 19th of December, right? So we'll be the solstice and equinox is when we prepare and we teach our families and have food together. So we'll be doing an equinox at the Springs on the 19th of December. And we'll be having the Boy Scouts come fix tacos for us.
Great. Well, I don't see any more. Oh, someone just came in. Can you share anything about the translation of San Gabriel Valley into, I can't pronounce this word, sorry.
Tangrave.
Thank you. The Tongva language. Also, how can we buy coloring books?
In my website, they can buy coloring books. In the first word was, it means little mountain. So we have that word twice. In San Gabriel, we have the Santa Monica Mountains. So we have, it means larger mountain, San Gabriel. That's the translation.
We have one from James. What is the relationship between Tongva and the capital milling site? Are there artifacts there at the Zanja Madre?
I don't know if there's artifacts, but the Zanja Madre is very important to us. So if you go to Alvera Street down the center of where the little shops are, you're seeing those stones, the water still seeping through. That's water from the Zanja Madre.
Yeah, it's beautiful there. Gloria then asks, are you involved with the Protect Kuruvungna site work?
On the outskirts. So there's people that fought for that before my time. So, but I do participate in some, but mostly with on the outside. I don't like to jump into people's battles already. So there's a lot of people that have been fighting from the beginning. I do participate, but from the outside.
And then a couple of folks are asking where exactly the Kuruvungna Springs are located.
On Barrington Avenue in Santa Monica, right next to University High School.
Yeah, and earlier we dropped a link in the chat with more information about it as well. We can submit it again. If anyone has any other question, oh, here we are. What's your favorite part about being Tongva? From Este.
It's who the creator made me. So I think that none of us can really respect anyone else unless you truly know who you are from within, and so I always recommend the movie My Spirit Does Not Speak English. Even though God hears English, He'd rather I speak Tongva because that's what He created my spirit to be.
Beautiful. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Letitia, I think you might have mentioned you had some other questions.
Yes, and I think there was one question from Nicole that may not have been answered about where can folks purchase or see Tongva artwork?
Artwork. That I think we're gonna one day get the metro and just travel it. Travel the metro. Yeah. Yes. We'll have to have a guide for the metro so people get on it. And if you're here, there's Tongva.
Well, we do have a Metro Art tour. We have docents and I'm sure, actually I saw the founder of our docent program on the call. So she's listening, and stories and narratives will continue to be woven into their tour, but having you on that tour could be really fantastic when things get a little safer. Yeah.
We have a couple more questions that came in. One from Eileen. What is the special role of music and song in daily life for the Tongva people, Julia?
It's like a prayer, like a ceremonial prayer, that song, that people might have. All of us don't sing. I don't sing either. I don't do art, I don't sing. So
We have another question I think I missed earlier. Is there any talks around having a land tax like in the Bay Area? And they've sent a link referencing a Shumi land tax, which is a voluntary annual contribution that non-Indigenous people living on traditional Indigenous land make to support the Indigenous community there.
oh,
Are you aware of any discussions about that, Julia?
no, I'm not.
Thank you. Well, you're getting a lot of love in the chat. Thanking you for your wonderful information. Look forward to seeing your art, they're saying. They really appreciate your generosity for your time today. Yeah, thank you for your generosity. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, beautiful. Everyone is loving this, as are we.
Julia, how many Tongva tribes are in California and how big is your tribe?
I don't know, because I don't know if we count the children, you know, if they're part of, we probably count the adults. But there's 11 groups of us. So, but we're all one group, right?
Yeah.
People, yeah.
Julia, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were already on the NBC Morning News this morning, and you probably have a talk later today. You are like always on tour, which is so incredibly, how you have the energy for this is just phenomenal.
I think
how do you do
it's
it?
exciting. I don't know. It's exciting. I sleep well, right? I love it. I think I tell my students all the time that they keep me alive. If I didn't have them to teach, then there would be no reason for me to get up. But it's the fact that you're teaching people constantly and you're interactive, that you have a big audience of people to work with. And so it's empowering I learn from them and they learn from me. It's not a one-way street.
Yes. And where I know that you visit as a educator to many different institutions, but where are you regularly teaching? Where do you have
I teach, I think my job is at Claremont at the 8 colleges there. I do circles for Redlands University, Laverne, and I work with UCLA, and then I work with Drury University in New Jersey and Oklahoma City, and so I work everywhere. I kind of really like to call me and I'll come. So, and this week I think I have like 6 4th grade classes I delivered material to in Hermosa Beach. So I've been doing that for 6 years, so didn't want to miss it. So they take me last week so they could teach this week. So it's great. And I have students that if their name's Julia, like to take a picture with me because we're Julia's. So.
Somebody has asked how you say thank you in Tongva.
I don't know the word, but we don't say thank you, we say I'm happy. Like we don't have thank you, we have happy. Most tribes have the word I'm happy. So I always say, if you give me something, I'm happy you gave it to me. That's my thank you. I have a smile, right? I don't say, like some kids when you get home and you give them something, they go, oh. So
I think I see one other question. Is there any Tongva rock art? Asks someone.
I've heard there's some in Topanga and some in the Olaki, been the mines, but they're protected, right?
Well, unless there are more questions, which we have time for, so feel free to trickle them in. But I just wanted to thank you on behalf of the public art field and Metro for just trusting us to share your journey.
Yes.
Because, you know, I believe that public art can be a pathway to transformation and justice. So hopefully more to come and more work to be done. And it looks like we have more questions. I'll pass it to you, Christina, to read it off. Oh no, this was privately to me. Do the various tribes, here's the question. Do the various tribes throughout the US communicate? Being that their mission must be the same, I would like to know. Are they the same?
We do communicate. I teach mental health for San Bernardino and Riverside Indian Health. So, and we share, and you know, people do powwows today. We didn't do powwows in LA. We did fiestas. So, yeah. You know, we have conferences ourselves also. So.
I think Christina relayed this in the beginning, but for community relations as well too, and just the entire Metro agency, we're so honored for you to have this conversation with us today, and with all of everyone that's on the Zoom meeting today, because these conversations are so important. And if someone can leave here saying, I learned a little bit more, or at least I know who Julia is, and go on your website, then we were successful. And I think it's so important to spread the knowledge and wealth of the information about the Tongva community that's here, you know. And we don't want you to be invisible. We want you to be visible, and we want everyone to be talking so much about the Tongva people. So thank you so much. I learned so much, and I'm honored and humbled. So
thank you.
Absolutely, and lots of folks in the chat are saying something very similar. Yeah, thank you for your generosity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And for all my family artists. So
I think, Christina, we can close it out. Letitia, any final words, Julia, maybe inspiration or anything that you want to share with everyone before we close it out?
Yeah, I just really appreciate everyone for coming and for wanting to learn and to be involved with the Tongva and who we are.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we will send out the recording of today if you signed up, and look forward to seeing you at the next community conversation. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you
Bye.
all.
Julia.
Bye, Julia.
Take care.
Bye.
Oops, I turned it off.